What's up, everyone? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have a collection update for you. I'd like to begin this with saying, fuck, I miss record stores. Ordering stuff in the mail is fun. It's kind of like, Christmas. Every time you go out to the mailbox, like, ooh, did I get something? And, the giant letdown when you didn't. But I miss just going to record stores and hanging out and getting all sorts of cool shit. But still, during this whole outbreak, stay-at-home, social distancing thing, still managed to find some cool stuff. Just had to wait for it to get here in the mail, and I got a stack here, and let's get into it. Okay, we got a couple from Grave Miasma. We have the Exalted Emanation EP and the Realm of Evoked Doom EP. Now, this is their first EP ever. This came out in 2009 on Sepulchral Voice. This is a fantastic EP. I love this. I love the atmosphere. This is pretty much like straight up blackened incantation, pretty much. It has that cavernous sound. It's just absolutely amazing. Love this stuff, and this pretty much is close to what they do now still. I mean, they really haven't changed around very much, but absolutely killer. This is definitely a little bit more raw, and there's some demos on here or rehearsals which have unbelievably muddy production. This one is less about atmosphere and more about just pure raw heaviness. And Jesus Christ, the guitar tone in this is just disgusting. Love both of these. This one is a little bit more on the muddy side. This one is, well, still muddy, but definitely better produced, I'd say. But either way, if you've never jammed Grave Miasma, definitely check out any of their releases. They are fantastic. It's just heavy, cavernous, blackened death metal, and it's fucking awesome. Check them out. Merciless Death, Taken Beyond. I didn't even know this album existed. It wasn't until I actually went back and went over all those old thrash releases from the 2000s that I found out, oh hey, they had another release. This came out on High Roller Records, and this is pretty much just straightforward, very raw thrash. I gotta say, I don't like the production on here. The drums sound particularly muddy on this, and it pretty much pales in comparison to their first two albums as far as like the fullness of the production. The vocals sound kind of dull on this, unfortunately, too. Like, there's really not a lot of intensity behind them, and overall it kind of has the feel of a demo rather than like a fully mastered, produced album. I definitely prefer their earlier material to this one. This is still alright. I don't know, it's just kind of missing something for me. Still, I recommend you check it out, form your own opinions and such. This one really didn't do much for me, but I still love their earlier releases, and we'll definitely keep going back to those. Check it out. August Burns Red, Guardians. It's one of the few metalcore bands I actually still get into. This came out on Fearless Records this year. We thought about doing a review on this one, but we decided against it and found some other stuff to review. I still really like these guys. I like the fact that there's definitely some growth in their songwriting. Like, before they were just very reliant on the breakdown. It was pretty much their thing. Now they've started experimenting with more ambient melodies and dissonance. I think the vocals sound a little bit more raw. There are some cleans on here, but they aren't overpowering for the most part, except for the song Lighthouse, which I think the cleans sound way too processed. It really just kind of took me out of it. It was like, this doesn't even sound very natural. But for the most part, I really just dig this album. It's a solid offering. If you love metalcore, this is pretty much just straightforward metalcore. Like, this sounds like it was still in a time capsule from 2007. A lot of great riffs on here, a lot of great melodies. If you're a fan of metalcore, definitely check it out. It's good stuff. Disembowel, Echoes of Terror. This is their debut full-length, came out on Maggot Stomp Records, which, after I got this, they sent me a brochure, and I ordered a fuckload of shit from Maggot Stomp Records, so expect some more stuff from them on my next collection update. This is pretty straightforward, just old-school death metal. It's very riffy, it's very similar to a lot of the stuff that's coming out in the Pacific Coast scene, and these guys are from Portland. Definitely a lot of death and autopsy worship on here. It's kind of meat and potatoes, and I like that, but also could use like some more lead work or some like ambience or a little bit of something to break up the tracks a little bit. Still, overall, this is a solid debut album, and I'm definitely going to be checking out more from these guys, and of course this record label, because there's a lot of kick-ass shit on Maggot Stomp. Check it out, it's good stuff, especially love old school death metal. Graveyard, One with the Dead. This pretty much completes my run of going after Graveyard's full lengths. This is their debut full length, came out in 2009, and this is definitely a little bit more raw than their later stuff. Not that that stuff isn't raw at all. This is definitely more thrashy and leans heavily on that Dismember guitar tone. There's a couple of tracks in here that have moments that reminded me of Wherever I May Roam or Blackened. And they're very specific. It's mostly in the vocal cadence. But overall, yeah, a pretty solid release from these guys. I mean, I like all their albums. There really isn't one that I've been super disappointed by. And the added bonus of this one is a Candlemass cover, A Tale of Creation. And it's done in full, like, death metal fashion. But they do squeeze in some clean vocals to actually give it that giant epic doom feel in the chorus. And it's really good. The clean vocals are pretty solid on this. I was really surprised. But yeah, it pretty much runs the gamut of all sorts of cool shit in death metal. Some D-beat sections, a little bit of melodic death here and there. And definitely a fierce Dismember-like feel on it. Definitely check this out. Check out any release by Graveyard. These guys are fucking sick. Alright, this is the split EP I got in the Metalhead box from Apocryphon and Fabricant. Literally had not heard anything by either one of these bands, so this is my first exposure to them. This came out on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Productions, and both of these bands are from California. Now, Apocryphon only has one track in here, which is the first track, Sidonian Enigmas / Berserker. And it's one song, it's 8 minutes long. It starts with a Hellraiser quote, which I fucking love Hellraiser. But the production on this is pretty bad, honestly. It's very muddy. And it sounds like they're trying to go for something like Behemoth or Belphegor, because there's hints of black metal in this. But overall, the production really kind of hampers it. Now, Fabricant pretty much reminds me of Immolation. They try to do the same sort of song structure, very wild-sounding death metal that's very angular and has a lot of dissonant riffs. But unfortunately, they're not as good as Immolation, which, I mean, Immolation's fantastic. But this kind of comes off a little sloppy at times and really cluttered. Like, there's not a lot of distinct melodies on here to really break up these songs. And there's a little bit on here that it seems like they were trying to go the whole Demolich route, which I think Demolich is one of the few bands that could pull off Demolich's sound. Now, neither one of these bands are around, technically. Fabricant's been on hold for a while, and I believe Apocryphon broke up in 2015. Didn't really check and see what bands any of the members are in now, but this was kind of an okay split. I definitely want to check out stuff from either one of these bands on like more of a solo thing instead of a split, just to see what they sound like on those, but overall, this is just okay. Still, check it out. Azath, Through a Warren of Shadow. Now this is their debut album out on Pulverized Records. And this is a fantasy-themed death metal band. And I actually looked this up. They theme all of their stuff off of an author, Steven Erikson, and his book, Malazan Book of the Fallen, which I'm not familiar with at all, but I assume it probably has something to do with dragons. This is really solid death metal. I like the riffs. The blast beats are fucking furious on this. I have an issue with the vocals, though. They seem just kind of lazy. Like, the same level of intensity that went into the music doesn't sound like it went in with the vocals. They're just kind of this standard growl, and they're kind of flat. And there's interesting little interludes in between tracks, or just shorter tracks sometimes, where they actually kind of break it up and do some more death doomy stuff. And I kind of wanted to hear that continue on more, because sometimes this can just kind of go on into a blast beat fest that becomes a little static. But overall, man, I love the riffs on here. Like, this is some really solid stuff. Definitely has early Morbid Angel vibes, bit of Deicide. Love the title track. I think the drum work's fantastic. Just pretty much the vocals were pretty much my only gripe on here. Still, definitely check this out. This was a pretty solid debut, and I'd like to hear more from these guys. Ripped to Shreds, Luan. I have been looking forward to this one when I heard these guys were coming out with another album, or rather, this guy. He's usually a one-man band in the studio, but this time he actually has different members in there. And this is such a wild listen. Definitely fiercely, like, Swedish death metal sound, Dismember, Entombed. The guitar tone, of course, is very, very buzzsaw-oriented. But there's a lot of cool elements to these songs. There's thrashy moments. There's some really cool lead sections on here that just kind of go for, like, almost like a Marty Friedman-like shredathon. Excellent songwriting in here. And each song is varied. There's a uniform style throughout, but there are a lot of cool little nuances they throw in certain tracks that don't repeat in other tracks that just want to make these stand out. I absolutely love this. This is a fantastic listen. The production is a little raw, but it's very fitting. It kind of gives it that kind of like 90s death metal feel. I love their first full length. I love their Demon Scriptures EP. I thought that was a fantastic listen too. This is quite something else. Definitely check this out. Call of the Void, Buried in Light. Now, I brought these guys up in my underrated grindcore albums, and while they're not necessarily 100% grindcore, they definitely are very much in that vein. It's hardcore, power violence, crust, kind of all those elements kind of thrown together with grindcore, and bam, you have this band. Unfortunately, this is their last release. Came out last year, and they broke up the same year, unfortunately. But this pretty much just continues on what they're doing. I think this one's production is a little bit more polished, but it still doesn't sacrifice much grit, or any grit at all. And there's definitely a lot of just big, riffy, sludgy moments on here. I only wish I got to see these guys live because this music sounds so fucking intense on here. I can only imagine the live show's just insane. But unfortunately, they're not around anymore. Hopefully they get back together because I'd love to hear more from them. But I got this and their other albums, and they're a lot of fun jams, so I'll just have to live with that. Either way, check these guys out. Killer release. They really don't have a bad album. Carriage Visions. Now, this came out on Stormspell Records in 2018, and this is just straight up classic heavy metal or trad metal. The vocals on here are absolutely over the top, and can be a little jarring at times, but for the most part, I really like them because they kind of dial up that sort of campy fun that I love about heavy metal. There's definitely like some Merciful Fate worship on here, but mixed that with like the Paul Di'Anno era of Iron Maiden. Some really thrashy songs on here too, so there's some moments here that pretty much sound a little bit closer to like thrash metal rather than heavy metal. Lots of great lead work, lots of great guitar harmonies, pretty much all the hallmarks of heavy metal. I really enjoyed this. This was a fun listen. There's some stuff on here that kind of was a little cheesy. I think Gypsy Woman was the one that kind of just lost me, especially on the chorus. But overall, I really dug this. This was a good release. And a nice little fun surprise from the Metalhead box. Check it out. And finally, we have Synapse Misfire, Losing the War Against the Sands of Time. This was another one I got in the Metalhead box on Horror, Pain, Gore Productions. And this is, I guess, Blackened Death Grind. Now, when I went to Encyclopedia Metalum, they said it was black metal, and listening to it, there's definitely a lot of other elements on here. The songs are very short, very hostile sounding, and I kind of like that it has that kind of grindcore energy to it. It's a very frantic release, especially musically. Sometimes it can be a little dull, though, which is kind of odd for calling it frantic. But sometimes it just kind of blends in the background. It kind of reminds me of Goat Whore's earlier material, which I'm kind of so-so on. I think the last few tracks in here were the ones I really got into, and then I got into these weird samples just telling you to do it, which I think that's also in the intro too, and it's like someone's fucked up internal monologue telling them to kill themselves or kill people or something like that. It's appropriately dark and metal, of course. Overall, this was a pretty interesting listen. I think this is the band's only release. I'm not entirely sure if they're still around, but I would definitely check out more by them. But either way, definitely check it out. It was an interesting listen for sure. Alright, well that knocks out another one of these. First off, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that subscribed. We hit the 1,500 mark not too long ago, and it seems like it's taken off, and I'm super happy with that. Thank you guys so much. You guys make this worth doing. And second, at some point, we're going to get together on another giveaway. We all just want to kind of get together and each contribute something to the giveaway. Kind of Thralls care package, if you will. But we definitely want to get around to that. And, of course, look out for more reviews and all sorts of the content because we're going to keep rolling with this shit. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.